Hi, everybody. So we are, we're trying to define. We've been spending the last half an hour trying to figure this out. So we've been trying to define, discuss, figure out what the metaverse is.
We did it, right? Done.
I think we've solved it. Yeah. We actually solved it ahead of time. I don't know if we'll be able to share everything with you, but we're going to work on it a little bit. We've got Madison Berger here, Rachel Levin, Katie Richman, and Stephanie Rubenstein. So, and you know, the idea today is to really just kind of explore some of the thoughts related to this. We're still getting started, and I think the first thing that makes the most sense right now is how would you define the metaverse? Go ahead, Madison.
Sure. So first of all, I come from a virtual production background. So this panel, as well as the last year, really got me thinking, what is the metaverse? I think we've best defined it within virtual production to two areas. One of them is creating asymmetrical experiences, so streaming a keynote, a live event, a music festival into a digital platform.
One-to-many.
One-to-many, exactly, where people can then come either through a laptop, computer, or a VR headset and experience that in real time together. The second one we're seeing is in location-based experiences, so through wall-size LED, again powered by real-time content where individuals can come up with others and interact with the content in real time. So I think the common trend between those it's the next evolution of the internet, as we've probably heard before, but it's my favorite definition. It's a little bit more immersive and it's a little bit more real-time.
Katie, from a psychological perspective,
I was gonna say,
what do you see?
My quick background is I was 10 years at ESPN, and I'm more like production, social media side. So y'all are my best friends. I was at Meta for 8 years, and then I eventually just started when they started calling themselves Meta. I can talk about this. Started calling themselves Meta. I started blogging about it because I just don't think it's something like a video game that we go plug into with hardware, or else the rest of anyone but a gamer is not really going to be participating. So I look at it more like Web3, the next phase of the internet. We didn't know we were going to be here. How can I just have human actions and live my life and put my phone away, and digital comes to me? So yeah, messy, but that's what I think. Yeah.
Good, Stephanie.
Yeah, no, I think, building off of what Madison and Katie said, right, the Web3, the evolution of the internet, I got my start really in tech by being fascinated in social media and how it connects us. And that's still a mental model that I use when I think about the metaverse. And one of my first kind of forays into this metaverse space was working in virtual and augmented reality at an early stage startup and then at Meta for a few years. And I think one important addition to that definition of this evolution of the internet, right? We're looking at 3D immersive experiences and these virtual worlds.
And AR and all that.
And, accessing that through augmented reality or even 2D screens. Mm-hmm. But I think the one important differentiator is connected. We're not talking about, I would argue, we're not talking about a metaverse, but metaverses, connected worlds and being able to access and get access to information or connect to people anywhere and everywhere. I think that's an important piece.
ESPN used to say best available screen, right? So the control, the power to go completely analog.
Yeah.
Like, I wish you could just see the feed. I don't want to hear the comment. Or you layer it up with everything. I think that model, which we're getting to with digital, is just going to expand into our lives. So I could be here with name tags on everyone I'm looking at, and you could be clean. You're just living life,
As we look at that, I mean, a lot of people are like, okay, well, show me something. Show me something that actually is working, or at least some example of where we're going. So what would you define as good examples of where the metaverse is right now? Go, Madison.
Okay, it might not be good music, but it would be a good example. So Travis Scott, I don't know if any of you guys heard this, he did a live stream concert from a virtual production stage into Fortnite, and his fans were able to come and experience probably closer than they'd ever be able to get, safer than they'd ever be able to get. And he generated $20 million through people logging on, through sales of kit that he had, through digital assets, through equipment that you may or may not see in a physical version, but they were so excited to have that exclusive digital piece that it was a huge success. So I think live events is one space we're seeing it work really well.
You go, Rachel?
Yeah, well, my background is in journalism, so I was a journalist for almost 20 years in broadcast, and then I made the switch to tech, so now I do creative marketing and video and podcast for tech companies. But one of the things I think the exciting thing is about the ability to be able to immerse people in stories. So we're used to storytelling, and the metaverse has this potential of story living. So the protagonist, actually, you who are, if you do it right, person can feel like they have a real connection and can foster empathy. So one example of that was the UN a few years ago did this incredible VR movie at the time of what it would feel like to be a refugee, and it was all filmed in a refugee camp. You could turn around 360, and the New York Times started experimenting with this too, and that was really powerful. So for me, I think that opens up a lot. I have to admit, I'm a bit more probably of a skeptic coming from my journalism background. Some things about a virtual world seem a little scary, but I think if you think about the potential of connectivity and being able to immerse people in different experiences, then it's exciting, and there's a lot there.
I look at during COVID, I don't know how many parents are here, but I have 2 teenage boys and young teenage boys, and to suddenly cut them off from the world, I was really worried about their mental health, and Minecraft saved us. It looks like a game. If you haven't played Minecraft, it's free. Go play Minecraft. It's a maker's tool, and I thought that's what it was, right? A maker's tool you could tweak a little bit. No, they created a server for $5 a month, and there's 6 of them. They each took turns paying for this server and built a 2-year world with it. Every week they would host fancy dress night, and their avatars would fancy dress, and they'd get together and talk about distinguished things. They did Family Feud. I was astonished, and I don't think adults really understand what's going on. It's not a game.
Yeah, no, completely. I think, kind of the one downside of being last in this row on this question is I'm going to have to also say the Minecraft as well. And I
didn't
think
even say this before we were talking about
yeah. And I think it's in part because, like you said, it's kind of this open space that you can really make your own and do anything with. You can host concerts in.
It can be overwhelming to have nothing, though.
And, the world can be that, too.
Well, we have to provide objects.
Exactly. And I think the reason I say that's a good example is because as I'm thinking through trying to find a different example to go with, one of the simplest mental maps that come to mind is something like Google Drive or Figma or one of these collaboration tools where you can all jump into the same space.
And so what does that mean for video?
And what does that mean for
video?
video? What does that mean for virtual and immersive? That's kind of the I think the killer apps for the metaverse is these ultra collaborative platforms where you can kind of come into and build together.
I think a lot of times people can actually find things that they can test out ahead of time or learn things new. My daughter Roblox, a little younger.
Yes.
And so Roblox, you go from evidently, if you don't know, you go from Roblox and then you graduate to Minecraft.
Yes.
That's what I've learned with my kids. And but she was an interior designer inside of Roblox, and so she'd wander around and people would hire her with Robux, and she would go in and fix their houses for them and make it all look nice and everything else. And then she was complaining. She's like, so they said that they wanted to have something really nice, but they don't have enough money.
Exactly.
They wanted way more than they could pay for. Or then I did a bunch of work and then they didn't pay me, and I was like, welcome to my world. And so
Meta, when Facebook started doing Horizon World, it was like, here you go, you can do anything. And people go, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So quickly, and I don't know what's happening there now, but I'm assuming it's furious templating of experiences, because if you show an experience but then say, but feel free to change the whole thing, I think that's an easier jumping off.
I think the whole idea of the choose your own adventure You know,
but you have to frame. We have to frame that all out
right,
ahead of
but
time.
it's pretty powerful. And there's
Have you tried? That's super hard to do.
Yeah.
I know. I love it too, but
loved those books when I was little.
production's crazy. Yeah.
I think one other, speaking of Roblox and these digital platforms, is looking at brand experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Definitely.
think brand familiarity that we're starting to get from a really young age in a digital platform. I was thinking back when I was younger, and if there's anyone here from Wells Fargo, this is my idea, so listen, where
Claiming it.
where it was really important to me to go to our local Wells Fargo branch as a kid, and you'd go, your parents would get their coffee, you'd get your cookie, and it was this whole experience. And now I was seeing Wendy's is making a Roblox platform, a platform in Roblox where you can go and you can order a hamburger in Roblox and then have it delivered to your doorstep. So I was thinking, how is that any different from Wells Fargo creating a branch in Roblox to start that brand familiarity from a really young age? Open your first debit card, but do it in Roblox. So I think there's this real immersion between kids in digital platforms having then tangible experiences in the real life, and that crossover that's happening.
Yeah, I know that when I watched my daughter doing it, I was like, I can't believe that Lowe's and Home Depot aren't like modeling all of their items and putting them into.
But I will say one thing is, when I started blogging about the Metaverse, it was because I saw the Wendyverse come in, and God love Wendy, they were first, right? So they took a huge chance, but they built their own world. Who do you know that's like, I'm gonna go to toilet paper world right now? Like, you don't just go, they need to be in the world that everyone's in at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, contextually relevant.
Yes, and that's why I think like the separate metaverses, that's the problem I have is how do you discover anything?
Well, and this is where it gets back to that connected metaverse is, right? Because
we need interoperability.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that kind of blends into what are the challenges? Like, so as we look at this, we're trying to figure out what's possible, what's there, but what are the key challenges that we have to get over right now to move to the next step? Madison?
Sure. I think more of a emotional challenge is not creating isolating experiences. I think probably our skeptic here, as well as other people in the crowd, have this fear, myself included, of everyone wearing headsets or being isolated while trying to activate these communal events. So I think there's a approach to the metaverse that's multi-layered, so adding digital experiences to in real life experiences, so people are still coming together in real life and experiencing digital content together. And
Maybe
I think
even less than we do now, like looking at stuff.
Exactly. And I think an overarching problem is content generation in the virtual production space, in the live entertainment space, immersive experiences, is how are we creating enough interesting content? It's not enough to just build it and think they will come.
But it's also an opportunity for this crew.
You have to build it
More
and then
work.
have engaging content for people to come. So obviously, hot topic, but with the emerging AI content generation, that I think opens up a lot of doors. So super excited about that topic as well.
Yeah, I think, just like you were saying, two sides of one coin. On the one hand, you can present yourself in the metaverse of who you want to be. And that's not necessarily, obviously, as we know, of who you are, right?
Yep.
But that gives people a lot of freedom to be able to express these sides themselves and identities that are much harder maybe in their actual world. But on the flip side of that, how do you trust what you see in the metaverse? And I think that's going to be really a huge challenge, because it's already a challenge with that we're seeing more and more with deep fakes, et cetera, and obviously with
Catfishing.
Yeah, and obviously with and cyberbullying and all kinds of people hiding behind an identity. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that all evolves.
Yeah, I think data, so I mean, we're all people that remember when the social media was new, and I came out from ESPN because they're like, we want to expose more data to build, so that you can see stuff on the news, right? We can insert into graphics. It's all Twitter. Why is there no Facebook? Well, because all the data is protected. We have to remember that as a community, we pushed that open. At a certain point, there was a real-time feed on Spotify of what I was doing in my car that people would just forget about, or what they were reading. Then it was one day, that was just not okay, and it creeped us out as a community. And I think we need to get to a place where people they feel in control. So if I want to come here with Waze, like I did this morning, I need to give Waze my location right now. But right now, and then it goes home with me, and you're not lying to me, and you're not selling it. Like, I don't feel in control and I work in this stuff, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have two kind of separate answers because I really want to build off of what you're all saying here.
So many conversations.
So many conversations. I think the first one is, going back to what a couple of us were saying, right? There's this emotional connection that you can get in an immersive content. And I think that ties back to what, Rachel, you were talking about in this journalism piece, right? Where if you are immersed in an experience, you have an emotional connection to it that you might not have as closely if you're watching something on a screen. And that is powerful. And so when we think about content, it's ensuring that the right content is being produced, that is meaningful, that has impact, that is great content, and that drives to whatever the objectives, hopefully positive, are. And I think that's a key piece. So good storytelling, good content, really making sure that that's coming together.
It's too complicated right now, too.
And,
wallets and headset. No, I mean, just make it like Google.
And then the other piece, just real quickly, is the technical side. I say we need to have really amazing stories and drive really immersive experiences, but then we're up against things like Uncanny Valley and bulky headsets and other challenges that we're still
only going to hit a certain
fighting
point
to.
until that gets fixed.
I mean, I think, storytelling is a basic part of who we are, what makes us human.
Yeah.
It's the technology that changes,
Yes,
right?
most
But
definitely.
the actual experience of it is, evolves with that.
Yep.
And we're the
But the
content
tenets are the same.
creator.
Learning how to
We're
use
making
these tools
that.
and pushing the tools forward as well.
We have to know, right?
One question for you that we didn't talk about, but I think that is pertinent to this one is, where do you see video in the metaverse? Is Zoom a metaverse? Or Teams? Or is that part of the metaverse? Or is it when they're in a when you bring somebody into a virtual environment? When do you start saying this is
Video
the metaverse?
specifically, right?
Madison?
Yeah, I think originally I would have said Zoom, maybe not, depending on how you're presenting it. But earlier when you were talking about Apple and creating avatars, I was thinking, actually in FaceTime, we anyway already typically will have filters just by nature through the camera feed, or you can add different little caricatures. So maybe that is an entry level of the metaverse, or maybe that's taking it too far. But I think that's the biggest problem with the metaverse is again, what is it? Where does it start? Probably never ends.
That's my next blog topic.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, who cares?
And to create some context, we were talking before the thing here, that what we were talking about with Apple and with avatars was the fact that I feel like Apple is the only one that really figured out how to make a cooler version of ourselves, with the memojis. Whereas the other ones, the Apple one, if I looked like my memoji, I'd be pretty stoked. So, but everyone else, I kind of look, it's kind of like a weird version of myself. And I think that we get back to how people feel when they're when they're putting that mask on. Do they feel like a better version of themselves or a worse version of themselves? That.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to also this idea of, are we turning into a video game, or, is the video game turning into reality? Where does that line kind of start and stop, and how technology will improve to make it feel less like a video game? Because right now,
While we're putting things in buckets, young people are building, they don't give a crap. We're sitting here debating what the label should be, but if we just think of this as all one thing with varying, right?
Just experiences, right?
Yes.
Just experiences of different levels, different
video
immersion.
And recognize that the definition will likely keep changing as well. I mean, I think you talking about young, kids that are encountering this and not really seeing those lines that we're necessarily drawing.
Gender,
what is the internet? What is versus email versus
Web3.
FaceTime.
What's a message
versus,
or an email? Right.
And I think that's really powerful, because going back to thinking about where this is heading as well. We probably have the definition completely wrong. Let's check back in, a couple years and see how much it's changed.
What is the definition worth, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to always talk to my kids. My kids are teenagers, and I'm always checking in.
Same.
Like, I found out that oof is no longer a thing.
Every time I say
I was like
something,
oof,
it's
and they're
like
like, Dad, no, we don't do that anymore. And that was like a thing 3 months ago, and
Any
gifts
video I send
evidently-
them is stupid and they saw it already.
Yeah, I was like, and so gifts evidently are no longer a thing, so keeping track of that, you almost have to have an expert group of kids who can tell you how this all works. One of the big things is that one of the challenges right now also is just how many people will come to an event. I talked to somebody who was working on an event.
A digital event, you mean?
A digital
Yeah.
event, a metaverse event. And the issue they said was we did an event, and for the number of people that showed up, it would have been cheaper. We did a metaverse event, and the number of people that showed up, it would have been cheaper to fly them all to the event.
Oh, wow.
And actually have them, for what we spent versus what, cost per head. So why should people even
Invest.
bother in this moment?
Well, I think you also bring up a bit of a contradiction, though, because on one of your earlier panels, you were saying that there was an event where it was streamed and the recording's not so good, the live stream's not so good, so you have really low retention. So I think we're battling between two things of either invest heavily into these digital metaverse events or continue doing it as we are, but then we have low retention. So maybe there's a balance that's found, maybe a lower cost way of activating metaverse experiences and metaverse digital experiences. But I think it's to increase viewer engagement, to increase brand engagement and internal employees as well, to get them more excited about keynotes, about sales kickoffs.
Yeah.
I think,
I was
Keep
just,
going. We don't have to go in order. You go.
yeah, go ahead.
okay, I was just going to call back to, I think something, Katie, you said about, kind of where it doesn't, like, whatever screen you're entering in.
Best available.
Best, yeah.
What if all the data, what if there was a big streaming pile of data and we can all in this room create a different experience with it? It could be a cartoon or it can be the bank.
And it's about access, I guess. It's,
Well, the data has to be free, and it's not right.
So
now.
whether, if it's a virtual event, a metaverse event, maybe some people are coming at it in headsets, maybe some people are tuning in on their screen, maybe they're even there in person.
Yes, right.
And I
that's
think
a different thing.
that is something different. I think that we've seen coming more so coming out of the pandemic, these hybrid events or
If the
completely
metaverse
virtual
knows
events.
that I'm the same
then-
Katie at the event
Yeah.
as when I put a headset on, that
Yeah.
opens up a huge.
Yeah.
I
An
need
identity.
to control that though. No, it's scary.
Alex, I was saying, I liked what you said earlier, which is that, this is the time to experiment with it because there's a lot of forgiveness. So when everyone went to virtual at the beginning of the pandemic and everyone was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, I was at Salesforce. It was like, oh my God, how do we turn these conferences, into interesting live streamed events? And maybe that's another way to think about this, that experimenting now with the metaverse, whether that's in events or video production or your avatar, is like, you're getting your feet wet and you're forgiven for.
You get a lot of mulligans
Yes.
at the beginning that you don't get. Like, as soon as someone sees something that's really good, everyone has to match that or
then
they
we
don't get to
have
play anymore.
experts, right?
But you can play, you can fail
So messy.
small now in a way.
right.
And I think that's the biggest argument is to really get into it, fail in small amounts, because as soon as someone does a great metaverse event, everybody has to do that.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know how to get there before that, you're never it's gonna take a lot of money and time and failure you're gonna be failing big.
Yeah.
I was saying, like, I depend on video engineers, right, to be creative. We do. ChatGPT means you can now make what you have in your head, right? So for artists, it's amazing.
It makes I'll tell you,
It can be
Midjourney is a
scary.
great thumbnail engine. So anyway, so as we're running out of time, as you look out 10 years or 15 years, what kind of metaverse events do we start? This is going to be a little bit of a lightning round, but what kind of metaverse events do we start seeing? Go ahead, Madison.
I think they're just going to be more immersive, more real-time events, so live streamed or in person with more digital add-ons to the environment we're in.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to go see a concert with your friend who's in Jerusalem and feel like you're actually there, even though you're thousands of miles apart, and kind of have this shared experience.
Web3, when I look at it, it's right now we have to actively type into Google. We can put that away, and based on our location and the rules we've set, digital comes to our life, and we go back to connecting. That's what I hope. That's my dream.
Yeah. I think seamless, immersive experiences.
Invisible.
Being able to, like everyone's saying, right, regardless of where you are, being able to have what feels like, or maybe is for some people, a in-person physical, impactful experience.
It's just a part of your life.
Yeah, but you're in the metaverse. Whatever that'll look like, I'm super excited to see. But I think the key thing is that seamless and that immersive piece.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.